Scotland produced a great sitcom called Rab C. Nesbitt. Then for a new generation, they created Still Game, and we still haven't seen anything as great since then. But how did the show come about? In this video, we'll take a look behind the scenes to reveal some secrets about Still Game. Jack and Victor. Every episode of Still Game was written by Kiernan and Greg Hemphill, who also played Jack and Victor. They created these characters for the sketch comedy series Chewin' the Fat. While Jack and Victor weren't the only characters on the show, they clearly became popular enough for Ford and Greg to continue working with them. Another character who made a few appearances in Chewin' the Fat was Winston, played by Paul Riley, not a well-known actor at the time, having only a few credits to his name. Ford and Greg decided to bring Jack, Victor, and Winston to a live show. The play was minimalistic and rather simple, but it brought humor and drama and let audiences explore the lives of these three characters even deeper. It was such a hit that audiences wanted more, and the show led to talks with the BBC. And eventually, Still Game premiered on the BBC in 2002. It ran for 9 seasons and ended in 2019. There was a 7-year hiatus from 2007 to 2014. It was so popular that even after 7 years, there was a demand for more seasons. 2014 saw the Live at the Hydro event, which we'll get to a bit later. Sanjeev becomes a star. Many actors had little acting experience or weren't particularly known before the show, but there was one actor who mostly worked behind the scenes and then became a star from Still Game. Sanjeev Kohli was a writer, perhaps best known for writing some additional material for the hit sketch comedy series Goodness Gracious Me. Still Game would feature an Indian immigrant shopkeeper, and Sanjeev consulted on how to craft the character. Then Kiernan asked him if he wanted to play the character. With little acting experience, Sanjeev decided to go for it, and Naveed became one of the most popular characters, though Meena still always had her eye on him, though her back was always turned to the camera. Sanjeev Kohli, being a Sikh, was originally going to play a Sikh character. However, in the famous Wadden episode, the wedding wasn't supposed to serve alcohol, which he said wouldn't happen at a Sikh wedding. He then suggested the character become Muslim. He and Shamsad Akhtar, who played Meena, would also improvise lines in a mixture of Punjabi, Urdu, and Hindi, which also brought about some of the funniest moments. Sanjeev Kohli became a star playing Naveed, and he's now one of Scotland's most recognized comic actors, though he's also appeared in dramas like the soap opera River City. 007 as Winston. Paul Riley became a star when he played Winston Ingram, and he was the perfect third character to Jack and Victor's double act. Winston is the only other character, apart from Jack and Victor, to appear in every episode of the original series prior to the hiatus, and many fans argue he's the best character. But what happened if Paul Riley hadn't been cast? Of course, he had played the role in Chewin' the Fat and in the original play. But he wasn't the only Winston. There was a time when Gavin Mitchell, who played Boaby, was considered for the role. There was an even bigger actor who was strongly interested in playing Winston, the original 007 himself, Sean Connery. It didn't work out in the end, and Paul Riley truly made Winston his own. The Witty Dialogue. One of the things that made Still Game such a great show is the witty dialogue from the cast. Ford and Greg were generous enough to give some of the best dialogue to other members of the cast and not just themselves. But as Greg recalled in the documentary, Still Game, The Story So Far, sometimes the dialogue was there just because the pair was tired. For example, in the episode Shuglies, Season 2, Episode 7, Jack and Victor are in a lift when Isa gets in. Ford and Greg were feeling a bit tired as they had gotten a bit worse for wear the previous night. Or in other words, they were pished. As a result, they kept quiet as Isa gave her full monologue trying to figure out where they were going, until eventually figuring out that they were going to town. Of course, another one of the many popular lines in the show was the banter with Boaby. Every time Boaby tries to insult Jack and Victor, they manage to come back and mock him. We won't say it here, but the line that Jack responds with in Season 1, Episode 3 called Called became one of the most popular comebacks. Victor's brother. Many of the cast members were from Glasgow and already had the accents built in. However, apart from Sanjeev, who had to put in a mixture of Glaswegian and Indian Punjabi accent, Greg Hemphill had to also put on an accent. Though born in Glasgow, Greg grew up in Canada. As a result, he had a Canadian accent and had to put on his Scottish one. In one episode called Holiday, Jack and Victor visit Jack's daughter Fiona in Canada. Since they filmed in Canada, it gave Greg the chance to cast his own brother in the show. Here's a hint, look in the section of the episode when they're going up the elevator at a speed and height not too accommodating to Jack. Actual OAPs. While most of the cast were younger actors putting on makeup to play old-age pensioners, there were a couple cast members acting their age. One was Jake Darcy, who played Pete the Jakey. He passed away during filming of the Revival series, and his character died on the show with him. A similar but younger character, Methadine Mick, was made to replace him. Jake Darcy was one of Scotland's most famous actors, and this show was one of his best works. Another great Scottish actor who appeared in the show was James Martin, who played Eric. He was in his 80s when the new series came out and was likely getting ready to retire. His character Eric died in the later seasons to signify him leaving the show. And finally, Paul Young played Shug on the show. His character made occasional appearances during the show, and his role got bigger as he became more popular. Paul Young was known to have big lugs or big ears, and early in his career he was told he'd never succeed as an actor due to them. However, Still Game worked Shug's lugs into the show, and this became part of the character's uniqueness, and provided many jokes. We just can't get enough. The show first ended in 2007, and it seemed like we'd never hear from those characters again. But Scotland wasn't having it. No matter how much success the cast had in other shows or films, there was such a huge demand to see Craiglang again and see the cast back together. This demand eventually led to the 2014 series. This demand eventually led to the 2014 show that was live at Glasgow's Hydro Arena. This show was so popular they had to put on more shows, and U2 had to postpone their performances to accommodate Still Game. Eventually, the show returned in 2016 for 3 more series. And now that's it, as we won't see the characters again. If you've seen the last episode, you know what we're talking about. Actually, who knows? When the show has had such an impact, and the cast and crew loved working on it so much, Ford and Greg might find a way to go to the Clansman and grab a pint. And of course, they won't expect that Tam will pay for it at any time. The cast members continue to give interviews discussing the show, and director Michael Hines has spoken fondly about his experience on the cast. Sanjeev became a star in his own right, but often discusses how the show came to be and how he created his character. Just as Rab C. Nesbitt influenced Scottish comedy earlier, Still Game did the same for a newer generation. It's the gold standard, and we'll have to see if any other sitcom can have the same impact. Now it's time to hear from you. Who was your favorite character on Still Game? Let us know in the comments section below.